So the Pistons are seen as a wild card to land this all-star point guard, and it is Trae Young. And I am ecstatic. Now, this does come from a Bleacher Report blogger, Eric Pincus. He says competing executives say they need to do something. And yeah, he's right. The Pistons do need to do something. I personally would not be disappointed if the Pistons brought in Trae Young. I know some fans don't love the fit with Cade Cunningham. But dude, I don't care if the fit isn't perfect next to Cade Cunningham. You're talking about a top 5 guard in the NBA. For 5 seasons, he's averaged at least 25 points per game and I believe 8 or 9 assists. His career high in assists per game this year with like 10.8, averaged 29.6 his second year in the NBA. He's led a team to the Eastern Conference Finals. He's been a multiple time All-Star. He's made an All NBA team. And if, in my opinion, if you ask Portland Trailblazers fans if they would be disappointed if you could have had Brandon Roy and Damian Lillard in the backcourt together, none of them would be disappointed about that. I don't think Pistons fans should be disappointed in our version of Brandon Roy and Damian Lillard and Cade Cunningham and Trae Young, because that could actually be the reality. I would love to see it. But what are your thoughts on Trae Young potentially landing with the Detroit Pistons?
I say it's a full send. If this is an opportunity and Trae Young wants to come to Detroit, he's got to have some tie with Monty Williams. There has to be something there for this to be made a full case to actually be a thing. And then also, too, if we're going to be going and we're going to be looking at maybe adding another person for president of basketball operations, if you get someone in that has maybe a little bit of history with Trae Young, you might get another opportunity for him to have a higher ceiling to come to Detroit than not wanting to come to Detroit. But you can't pass on an all-star. As much as we just talked about Blake Griffin, granted it's not the same case, so please don't comment on Instagram about what I'm about to say. But they're superstars. You're getting a superstar in Detroit. It doesn't matter really who it is. Blake Griffin obviously was on a decline. I'd say Trae Young is plateauing where he's at. I don't think he's going to be any better than he already is right now. But you can't pass up on that. If you're going to get a guard that's going to come in and be able to shoot maybe 30, 34, 35%, 37% from three with Cade, that's a very consistent mid-range jump shot maker, which that's what he wants to be. And you can actually have a guy that's able to set up Cade for what he wants to do. I don't think you can pass on that. It's too oblivious to a lot of people. And I don't care what Pistons say about Trae Young of negative comments of him coming to Detroit. You cannot pass down a guy that has solidified himself in the NBA and taken a team. I'm pretty sure the team he took to the Eastern Conference Finals was not the greatest team that he had paired with him.
I think the second best player was John Collins.
Yeah, so he can carry a team. He really can. I know that he has his cold sprees, but doesn't every NBA player? So if they have an opportunity and you have the cap space for it, I say you sign him, because you can get him plus maybe a top 5 pick, maybe a number 1 overall pick. You could maybe kind of boost this rebuild a couple of years in advance.
Yeah, I'd be willing to go out on if the perfect scenario for me in acquiring Trae Young would be you're trading Jaden Ivey to the Atlanta Hawks because they're in a rebuild. You probably got to get rid of the first round pick this year. So you're probably picking for Atlanta, and who knows who they pick. But then you're bringing in Trae Young, and then I would honestly call the Brooklyn Nets up, and I would try to bring in Nick Claxton from Brooklyn by trading Jalen Duren, because I know the Nets might be trying to rebuild, and then you get your potential 20-10 guy in Jalen Duren. Pistons get their defensive anchor in Nick Claxton, and Cade and Trae Young have made big men look good. I think it's just like that. That would be the dream. And then you bring in Tobias Harris, potentially, if you still have the cap room.
Yeah.
I don't know how it all work, but like if you could do something like that, that's a roster I think most fans could get behind and be like, yeah, I'm rooting for that. Even though there are fans out there that are like, I don't want to see Trae Young. If he's in a Pistons uniform, you're rooting for him no matter what. It does,
and
not
you're
matter.
buying it.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
You're buying it. You're gonna buy it. He's gonna fill the seats. And I know that's a part of the whole GM concept of this, is that's also flashback to Blake Griffin. Blake Griffin put people in the stands, man. Whether
He
whether
did.
people want to say it or don't say it that they liked him or they don't like him, people still went and watched him play basketball, man. So I don't think that's and if we have to give up the first round pick, do it, because
Mhm.
right now even me and you have speculated 100 different times of who the hell we're going to take at number one. So
Yeah.
who cares at this point? Like if you are, unless you as a Piston is, if Weaver's sitting there and he is 150% committed to a player in this draft, then go for it. But if you are unsure, you make this move, because if you have Trae at the 1, Cade at the 2, I would put Fontecchio at the 3, Tobias at the 4, and then if you go for Nick Claxton at the 5, that's not a bad roster. I don't know
It
how well it
competes.
would mesh, but it can work with this modern day NBA. So I like the move if they can make it. Granted, we haven't really been one to really take shots recently, so I don't know if that's something they're actually going to reach out and go for. But if you have the opportunity, I say you seize it.
I do too. And then you bring Asar Thompson, Isaiah Stewart, Marcus Sasser off the bench. Like
Yep.
it's
Quentin
just it's
Grimes, you
yeah,
have the pieces. You
yeah,
have
it's
the
a much better
pieces.
team. It's a
Yep.
much better team. It'd be so much fun. I mean, I wouldn't mind watching DeJounte Murray play in Detroit either. Like if
Yep.
Atlanta's gonna split those guards up, if I'm Detroit, I am calling, like I'm saying, hey, this is who's available. Everybody's available except for Cade and Asar Thompson. Who do you want for one of
Yeah.
these guards?
Yeah.
I'm going to try to bring one of them in because I think they could. Again, maybe the fit isn't perfect, but nothing's perfect in this world. And I just think when you are a 14-win team, you got to try whatever you can to try to make it work with Cade Cunningham before his time's up in Detroit.